let's go. It's time to be the GOAT. It's time to enter God mode, man, let's get it going. I wanna be the greatest, energy is overflowing. I know I'm stoking the fire, my desire's taking over, not time.
Okay, you beautiful friends, welcome back to the back of the semi-truck, and this time around, the video that we are about to go over is from a channel called Starstrike. Now, if you watch any videos of whatever out there that involve My Little Pony, then I'm pretty sure y'all are already familiar with the channel. But the video that we're watching from them is, I believe it's entitled, How Old Are the Main Six? And then in parentheses, solved. So I'm presuming that he's figured out how old the main six are, and yeah, I kind of want to check that out, but I don't want to check it out alone, so that's what we're going to be doing. I haven't watched this yet, so we're going into this blind, but with this though, this is me going into my commentary mode as opposed to my reaction mode. Two different modes on this channel. Reactionary, where we hit the play button, plays through, I watch, react as it's happening. We don't stop the video, but commentary mode. We stop the video, I lay out some thoughts. Y'all know the drill by now if you've been around a commentary video. So, how old are the main six? I don't know, but his thumbnail had 51 on there, and Twilight was on the front of his thumbnail. So, I'm feeling like that's a bit of a spoiler, but I don't know. We got 6 different ponies to go through, so I'm presuming, since he says main six, that's what we're going to be doing, is going all over the ages of all 6 of the main 6. Kind of wish it was the main 7 with, you know, Starlight in there, but hey, that's me. I love me some Starlight. But nonetheless, time for me to shut up, because I could keep talking if given the chance. Other than that, let's go ahead and spin this whole thing around. And I know I haven't done it quite yet, but we're going to spin this thing around after I hit this play button and have his video playing and do that commentary thing in 3, 2, 1, and play.
After watching 222 episodes of this show and running headfirst into 12 and a half walls stopping me from completing my goal, I have finally discovered the answer to the oldest question MOP has to offer: just how old are the main 6 in My Little Pony? And to get to this conclusion, I kid you not, I had to solve multiple plot holes in this show that caused me to completely recontextualize our entire understanding of how time even works in Equestria. Because despite this question having literally zero impact on our day-to-day existence, for some weird reason, people want to know the ages of these candy-colored, friendship-fueled chaos nuggets. Last video, we established that the time that has passed in the show is 9 years. The show starts off with the Summer Sun Celebration, meaning that every time summer rolls around, so does 1 year. And
balls. You know, he is starting out with a lot of energy, first off. Second off, if you hear noise in the background, y'all can tell by the name of the channel. I drive a semi-truck. I get parked in places where it's kind of a little noisy sometimes, so ignore it. If y'all don't hear it, good. I'm wasting my breath. And thirdly, very much starting out with telling us how time works within Ponyville and all its surrounding areas, which works primarily the same as what it does here on Earth. You know, 1 year equals a year type thing. You know, when some, you know, the show spans 9 years. So, yeah, not really delving deep into nothing that we probably didn't already know, but I do sometimes think to myself, okay, how long does things last within this MLP universe? Is, you know, is a moon kind of like, I mean, they're ponies. How does time work for them? Like, we've heard the adage that, you know, in dog years, as in 7 dog years is equal to 1 human year. I don't know. I'm rambling on. But 1 year equals a year within the show. So, cool beans. Now we know time-wise what's happening. So, 9 years have passed in the show. Let's continue and
The final season of the show ends shortly after the Summer Sun celebration. And by counting the seasons between those two events, the in-world time for the show is 9 years. Now, at first glance, it might seem like pretty useless information, but it's important to figure this out before anything else because we actually need to take this timeline we've created and cross-reference it with another timeline that actually gives us a pretty good estimate as to what the ages of the ponies are. And if you're just sitting there incredibly confused right now by what I mean exactly when I say another timeline, and you haven't actually seen the show, allow me to introduce you to a little spin-off series called Equestria Girls.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm laughing because of the scream, obviously, but, I mean, so that's a different timeline, but that's the human world. I mean, that kind of works the same as, you know, our world. You know, a year is a year, and I thought that's what you were saying about Ponyville. So why do we have to really compare the two if they're kind of the same? But then again, they're teenagers in Equestria Girls. So reality, you know, in Ponyville, they're adults and they got jobs and businesses that they own and stuff like that. But here they're teenagers. So I don't know if it works out equally wise. So yeah, I don't know. Let's continue and play.
Yup! They made a show about a purple pony princess going through a magical portal into a human world and becoming a purple human, going to high school with a bunch of human versions of her friends who live in this parallel dimension. Yep, this is a real thing that Hasbro made. It got some real mixed responses when it first released, let me tell ya. But regardless of how you feel about the show, this is the one area of this entire franchise that actually gives us a very specific range as to how old the characters could possibly be. If we can figure out exactly how old the characters are here, we can then cross-reference the human world's timeline with Equestria's to figure out their ages in the Ponyverse. No! Okay, so I suppose I should address the elephant in the room. I absolutely know for a fact that citing this show as a source is gonna spark a lot of lore debates in the comments. There are two big debates about the lore of Equestria Girls that I need to focus on.
Okay, so before he does that, I'm going to go ahead and say what I know I'm probably going to be wrong about, and he's probably going to cover it later on down the way. But you know what? Commentary. I'm going to say it nonetheless. So, yeah, I touched on it a second ago. In Equestria World, they are teenagers. They can't be teenagers in Ponyville because they've got jobs, they've got responsibilities. They're not in high school. They don't even have school in, you know, Ponyville and surrounding areas and junk like that. They don't even have all that. But yet, the CMC, they go to school. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm actually more confused than ever now. We can't really go by that, you know, Equestria Girls timeline. That's just weird. I don't know. Let's see what he has to say. Let's continue and play.
The first one is whether or not this show is even canon to begin with, and the other is that the human Twilight is not the same age as Pony Twilight, and that she is de-aged upon crossing into the human world. Now, to start off with the first one, I fully believe that this show is in fact canon, and the reason why is because we learn in Equestria Girls that Star Swirl banished the sirens to the human world. Then we later see a flashback of this event in an episode from Friendship is Magic. On top of that, we even see Sunset Shimmer, an Equestria Girls character, make an appearance in Season 9. This, to me, appears to be the writers sending a pretty clear message to us that Equestria Girls is considered canon, and I see no evidence to suggest otherwise. So that's what we're going with for this video. As for the idea that the characters in the human world are not the same age as the characters in the pony world, and when they go through the portal they are de-aged, I don't completely buy into this idea. Like, you have to give a solid explanation as to why it would de-age them of all things. What purpose does that serve?
Pause. Okay. Yeah, he does make a valid point here about going through the portal de-ages them, because we do have Celestia there, you know, in the human world, as well as Luna, and they are just pretty much more adult than, you know, the rest of the main six. But this could just be a parallel universe. No. You know, I know this has nothing to do with this video, but the thought was in my head a second ago, and it's popping back in my head now. Why didn't we ever get a special where they just, all of them went through the portal, all the main six, and swapped with, you know, their counterparts over there? Because that would have made for some kind of interesting plot points, kind of, possibly, and then had the main six from that universe come over there to Ponyville. I don't know, that's just in my head. But I don't know about the de-aging thing yet. I feel like it's just kind of like a counter parallel universe type thing happening right now. I know we're getting into their ages, but we got to establish this first. I don't, they're not de-aged, they're just in a parallel universe. So does that mean they're the equivalent of a teenager in Ponyville? I don't know. Let's continue. And
by how many years? Are the CMC DH2? What exactly happens if a 2-year-old goes through the portal? Do they cease to exist? I have heard a lot of people claim this, but I have yet to hear any form of solid evidence to support this claim. The only semi-decent argument people give for them being younger in the human world is that the characters are living on their own in Equestria, and if they were the age of, say, high schoolers, they would still be living with their parents. I personally have always just figured that the ponies just take on more responsibility at a younger age in Equestria, especially since given that in Season 1, the characters really do often act closer to around the age of 13-year-olds. But by the end of the series, they carry themselves much more like young adults. However, I have recently realized that neither of these ideas are correct. And it all started because of an inconsistency I noticed in the timeline when looking at Equestria Girls that led me to a massive plot hole that nearly caused me to abandon this theory altogether. But it turned out not only to be the key to this theory, but led to a second theory to fill a plot hole that has been around ever since Season 2. So to figure out the ages of the Equestria Girls characters, all we need to do is figure out how long they are in high school for, since people typically graduate at age 18 and high school only lasts for 4 years.
Pause. You can't necessarily go by everyone graduates at 18. I would say that more typical, the age would probably be 19. Yes, I say average 18. Because there are the few exceptions where there is some 17-year-olds out there graduating early, but that's just due to birthdays and stuff like that. But we've also got to factor in when people like fell a grade in high school, or fell maybe in elementary school or middle school or something like that. Because honestly, I failed the 3rd grade. I had to repeat the 3rd grade. So then that would have made me 19. So, yeah, then there was the issue I had with skipping school in the 8th grade, and I constantly skipped school, so I didn't have enough. I failed due to the fact that I was chronically skipping school, so then that would have pushed me back again to graduate at 20 years old. So there are factors out there that not everyone at 18 graduates. I would say more along the lines of most people are going to be late 18 to maybe in their early 19th year. So, yeah. But don't worry, y'all. I do got my GED. So, don't worry. I'm not like a complete dunce. Well, maybe I am. I don't know. Either way, though, let's just go with what he's saying, though, because, yeah, I'm nitpicking now. So, let's continue and play.
Then we just need to figure out what year of high school they're in, then cross-reference that information with the pony timeline to figure out their ages. And to figure out how many years they're in high school for, we can do the same thing that we did for FIM and count the seasons. And trust me, this is far harder than you could ever imagine. Why is it so hard, you ask? Because this series decided to throw a curveball at me that makes no freaking sense.
Play.
The first Equestria Girls takes place in the fall, as evidenced by the fact that the entire plot hinges on the fall formal. Easy enough. After this comes Rainbow Rocks, which takes place immediately after the first movie, as we see in the opening scene with the giant friendship laser. So essentially, no time has passed. The third installment in the Equestria Girls series is the Friendship Games, which takes place during the events of the Season 5 finale. We learned this from the final scene where Twilight steps through the portal and starts talking about how she was caught in a time loop. Obviously a reference to her conflict with Starlight. What's interesting is that because this movie takes place at the end of Season 5, and the first movie took place right before Season 4, there is actually a 3-year gap between these two movies, meaning we shouldn't expect to see them stay in school for any longer than 1 more year. The next
Pause. Okay, so we shouldn't see them staying in school for, that's a 3-year freaking gap. So that's freshman, freshman, I can't remember the things, but there's 4 different ones. Freshman, sophomore, I can't, wow, which one was it? Freshman, sophomore, whatever. Either way, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and senior. So they should be seniors after Friendship Games. Okay, so cool beans. And judging by the picture that I paused on, they're now going to a summer camp. This is possibly in between their senior year and going to college. I don't know. Maybe he's going to probably explain that, but holy crap, this is a lot of information to take in all at once. So I don't know, maybe this means they're like 17 now in, the episode where they went to camp. I don't know. Let's push play and play.
next special in the timeline is The Legend of Everfree. I wonder, is there anything here that tells us just how much time has passed?
The past year has all been a bit too much for my tastes.
The what?
The past year.
Surely you aren't referring to the past several movies, right?
We fought 3 evil sirens, 1 ridiculously competitive rival school, and 2 demon friends.
Wait just a minute!
Balls. Okay, so, nope, never mind. Not 3 years has passed. Only 1 year has passed in those movies. So, yeah, that kind of sucks, because this now throws quite the wrench into his little timeline to figure out how old these folks are. So, let's find out what he has to say now. And play.
I need to check the timeline real quick. Yep, here we go. Yep. Yeah, here we go. I just double-checked the timeline, and like I said earlier, if we line up Equestria's timeline with the human world's, it indicates that between Twilight's coronation, which is right before the Equestria Girls movie, and the ending of Season 5, it's been a whole 3 years. Not 1 year, as Rarity seems to be suggesting here. This makes absolutely 0 sense. Like, when I realized this, I started desperately trying to find an explanation. I thought maybe time moved faster in Equestria, kind of like the world of Narnia. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, all the ponies would be aging faster, and therefore giving birth faster, growing older faster, and dying faster. Meaning there wouldn't be any of the main 6 characters in the human world, because Equestria's universe would be countless generations ahead of theirs. And
Pause. That's not a bad theory. That is not a bad theory right there. You should... Let's roll with this. Let's find out what's going on with this theory, because I kind of like this theory that's happening, because, yeah, that makes sense. You know, time just moves faster. I don't know. Wow. So, I know that ain't much to add, but hey, time moves faster. Let's go with that. But he's going to go with something else, I could already tell. So let's continue and let him... let's let him dig a little, and just kind of get in there with us. So let's continue and
So I thought maybe Rarity is just plain wrong? Well, none of the other characters correct her, so I highly doubt that. Plus, this would be a pretty weird and random thing to get wrong. Nope, there genuinely doesn't seem to be any real explanation here. And honestly, this one kind of broke me. Like, it legitimately caused me to shelve this theory for a real long time before picking it back up. I just couldn't explain what the heck was happening here without delving into headcanon territory, which I don't like doing. I want to make sure that whatever theories I come up with, I have solid evidence for, and not just baseless guesses. At that point, it's no longer a theory, it's literally just a glorified fan fiction. But recently, I started work on this theory again. For about the 5th time, actually, and realized that this supposed plot hole is not in fact a problem, but is actually the solution to explain another major plot hole that this series has had ever since Season 2. In the episode Winter Wrap-Up, we learned that the citizens of Ponyville have been wrapping up winter manually for centuries.
For hundreds of years, they've never used magic to clean up winter.
But in the episode Family Appreciation Day, we are told that Granny Smith was around for the founding of Equestria, making her hundreds of years old. And upon realizing this, suddenly everything began to fall into place.
Pause. Wait, hundreds of years old? Granny Smith? I mean, don't get me wrong, I can believe it. She'd be looking quite old, but really? Hundreds? So, does that just mean that they count their years differently in Ponyville? Because that would kind of make sense, too, as well, if they count their years differently. So, I don't know. So, let's just continue.
And what I discovered changes everything. This whole time, we have been assuming that pony aging must be the same as human aging. It only makes sense, right? For every pony that exists, they have a human counterpart. And when their counterpart is born or dies, their doppelganger must also die. The issue with Granny Smith being 300 is that her human counterpart must also be 300. But this is all only somewhat true. Despite what I said earlier, Equestria is moving at a different speed than the human world. It has to be. Specifically, 3 times the speed, as indicated by Rarity in The Legend of Everfree. There's no other way to interpret this scene. If this wasn't the case, then Granny Smith in the human world would be approximately 300 years old. But if we stop assuming the ponies age the same way the humans do, and acknowledge the fact that Equestria moves 3 times faster than the human world, suddenly it all makes sense. Ponies live longer than humans, 3 times as long to be exact.
Pause. Okay, so now we've got a better frame of reference that we're going by. And yes, this is probably going to be my headcanon from here on. So now, thanks to Rarity saying 1 year, that gives us a time span to show us that, okay, it's only been 1 year between all these movies, but in the pony world, it goes from here to all the way to season 5. So, whoever their counterparts is, so if, I'm trying to get these words out, if they're 18 years old, let's just say, so double 18 is 36, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63. Wow. 3 times the age is like 60 something. That's crazy. So that means that she's 60 something? Twilight? No, that don't make sense because, yeah, if they age 3 times as fast, I don't know. Let's continue because I'm trying to let this all... I mean, because that's like saying the CMC. They're like 10 years old in the show, I think. 10, 11 years old. So that would mean in Pony Universe, they're like 30? That don't make no sense because they're obviously in like an elementary school type situation. So they're still the same age, kind of. Yeah, either way. Like, no, they're like 6 in the show. Yeah, okay, the CMC is really putting a kink in all this. Either way, let's continue and see what he says. And play.
This explains how Granny Smith was around for the founding of Ponyville. She is approximately 300 years old, while her human counterpart is closer to 100. And if she's not 300, she is likely at least 250, given how long Ponyville has been around for.
Pause. Okay, so hold on a second. Granny Smith, I'm sorry, her human counterpart is not nearly 100 years old. If she was 100 years old, she would not be the cafeteria work lady. That's for darn sure. Because, holy crap, if you think that's what a 100-year-old looks like, Granny Smith is like maybe 60, 70 years old at the most in the Equestria world. I mean, the human world, whatever you want to say. So, I'm sorry to say it, but no. It's definitely not adding up right now. But unfortunately, this is not going to be headcanon no more. Because the Granny Smith and the CMC, they're really putting a real kink in all this. Because it doesn't add up when you slow down long enough to think. He thinks that Granny Smith looks like 100 when nowhere near. No. Let's continue.
How old she appears, and the fact that she was already an older filly during Ponyville's founding, which, if we assume is 3 times the age of your average teenager, puts her at around 43 years old in this flashback. And I already know you're still skeptical of this claim, but don't worry, there is more evidence to back this up. The Cutie Mark Crusaders. If MLP spans 9 years, then why do the CMC not appear to age? They stay the same size throughout the whole show and never grow to the older stages of development. But if they age at 1/3 the pace as humans, suddenly it makes sense why they don't appear any older. 9 years to them is more like 3 years to us. And there's even more evidence because this also explains why characters such as the Cake Twins have no indication of getting older other than the fact that later on in the show, they are no longer wearing diapers. Equestria moving at 3 times the speed and the ponies living 3 times as long actually makes sense. And not only does it make sense, but it's the only thing that makes sense. Woo! You guys get 2 theories for the price of 1.
Balls. Okay, so I was with him in the beginning of this video. I was with him. But I'm sorry, but no, it doesn't make sense. Because the CMC, they act like they're more along the age in the pony universe. They act like they're more along the ages of, what, 6, 7 years old? Maybe 8. But then in the regular world, the human world, they act like they're maybe 5th or 6th grade at the most. Because, you know, I went to a school where the middle school and the high school were connected. And, you know, we even shared the same library. So, I could see how that all worked out. I could see them being maybe at the most 12 in Equestria Girls. But they're definitely, yeah, they're older in Equestria Girls as opposed to in the Ponyverse. I'm sorry, but that really puts a big kink in this because they're older in human the human version is older, or at least I'm in my head they older. The CMC in the show are far younger. I don't know. Either way, I'm still going to give it a chance. He's still got a few minutes left here, so I'm going to give it a chance. Let's continue and play.
Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, we were figuring out how many years passed at Equestria Girls. Sorry, I got very sidetracked there. The legend of Everfree occurs shortly after the previous film, as shown by Twilight's relationships with the other characters, and the fact that all Equestria Girls movies happen within 1 year. We also have this short series that was released with 3 22-minute episodes, which take place during the summer, according to Pinkie Pie, immediately followed by the summertime shorts.
Major bummer in the summer!
We then transition into Forgotten Friendship, where we note it is either spring or fall since the characters are in school, indicating that 1 year has passed. Next is Roller Coaster of Friendship, which takes place in the summer according to Applejack.
Rarity and I applied for summer jobs at the new theme park.
We then get Spring Breakdown, which indicates that a second year has passed. Next is Sunset's Backstage Pass, which takes place during the Sprummer. And then we get Holidays Unwrapped, which is a series of shorts taking place during the winter, meaning that fall has passed once again, indicating that 3 years have gone by. We also have a bunch of short songs and choose your own adventure stories that may or may not be canon because of the different endings they have. Other than shorts that are tied to specific movies, it's not actually very clear as to when they take place on the timeline, and they honestly don't really matter that much or make a difference, so we can ignore them. So we know 3 years have passed.
Pause. Okay. So ultimately, yes, he did just say 3 years, but ultimately that's what he's going to be telling us, that, 3 years in the human world has passed, and we know that 9 years has passed in the pony world, so pony world is moving 3 times the speed as the human world. No, sorry, it just doesn't feel like it's working that way, because there's different people being different ages, and it's just a parallel universe. I'm sorry, that my headcanon is now back to being that. Sorry to tell, Star Strike, he is not convincing me. And he's still, let's see, it's a 17-minute video. Oh, and by the way, yes, I know we're this far in, but I definitely suggest y'all go watch his video without all my pausing and stopping and all that. I do leave links down in the description, but he's still got, let's see, we're almost 13 minutes in, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. He's got like 4 minutes left, and I'm going to still listen and keep an open mind, but right now my headcanon is just simply, it's a parallel universe type situation happening here. I mean, do I know how old they are yet? I don't know. But, yeah, maybe I can come up with a theory in my own head about how old they are, but I don't know if this is convincing me. But I do still enjoy his channel. So, by all means, please go over there, check him out. He doesn't need my help of saying, hey, go check him out and stuff like that. But, hey, go check him out. Either way, let's continue and play. Darn, I messed that up, but that's okay. We got to retry here. And
but there is a major issue with this theory that I'm sure so many of you are already telling me about in the comments. Going off these photos that we see in Principal Celestia's office, Sunset Shimmer was in high school long enough to be crowned Princess of the Fall Formal for 3 years in a row, with the first Equestria Girls movie marking her 4th year. This would mean that the characters have been in high school for 6 years, which doesn't add up because high school typically lasts 4 years. But what if I told you that this notion is completely false? These are not, in fact, pictures from the previous fall formals. Listen closely to what Fluttershy says in the first Equestria Girls movie.
Just ask the girl who ran against her for Princess of the Spring Fling.
The Spring Fling. These photos of Sunset are not from the fall formal, but rather, they are all from a different event for each season. One for winter, one for summer, and of course, one for the Spring Fling. Which means that Sunset has only spent 1 more year in high school, not 3. And we know that the rest of the main 6 did as well, since they were in the previous yearbook and were present for the Spring Fling.
Balls. Okay, so that part I can agree with the pictures and stuff like that. It's just different, season festivals, and she's named the queen of, Queen of Spring Fling, Fall Festival. Not necessarily summer, but I don't know, Winter Wonderland or Winter Festival, or I don't know, but whatever, the season. Wait, so would there be a summer one? Because that's 3 pictures. I don't know, but either way, I do agree with what he's saying there. That's easily tied to that. So let's continue and
Meaning all of the characters are in school for exactly 4 years. Ha-ha! Yes! This is perfect! There is still one other thing to account for, though, which is that in Friendship is Magic, the pony version of Fluttershy states that she is a year older than Pinkie Pie.
I'm a year older than you.
And while this may seem problematic at first, this is actually incredibly helpful. If Fluttershy is a year older than Pinkie Pie in Equestria, then that means her human counterpart is only 4 months older than human Pinkie, which explains why they are in the same grade despite their ages. And we know that in the first movie, all of them are 15 because this is the beginning of fall, aka the beginning of the school year. Now remember, it also takes place right before the first day of summer at the beginning of season 4 in Equestria. And since the series ends not long after the first day of summer, we can just take the ages of the humans, which are 15, multiply it by 3 to get 45, then add in the remaining 6 years between Equestria Girls and season 9 to get their ages. And since the first Equestria Girls movie comes right at the beginning of summer, and the series ends not long after the first day of summer, giving us a near perfect year marker, we know that most of these characters are 51 years old. For any of the characters to be older than 51, they would have to have their birthdays soon.
Pause. Okay, so... Oh my gosh. Okay, so by the end of the show, not the final episode, but by the end of the show, he's wanting to try to say that they're 51 years old. And I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't wrap my head around that one. Maybe at the end of the final episode, I can maybe wrap my head around them being 45 to 51 easily on the final episode, where it's like in the future, because you can see the wrinkles on their face, you can see all that. If they're no, I'm sorry. And by some weird chance Starstrike watches any of this commentary and makes it this far, I'm sorry, I can't go along with this because it just doesn't make sense. At the beginning, I mean, unless we're talking about pony years. See, that's the only way you get around it, is to claim pony years. Because, I'll try to get my thoughts together as we're finishing this up, because... yeah, 51 years in pony years, yes, I could see that. But in humanistic sense, I've got to think more on that. Let's continue and play.
So, let's confirm whether or not they're 51. Pinkie Pie and Twilight's birthdays are in the spring, so not soon enough to be older than 51. Rainbow Dash's is early summer, according to how many episodes come after Pinkie Pride that are also in the summer, meaning that Rainbow Dash is likely to be 52 years old. Rarity's birthday, however, never actually appears in FIM, but it does show up in an Equestria Girls short during the spring, which is so late into the school year that there is no way she can be older than 51 in the pony world. And finally, we have Applejack, whose birthday never actually shows up in the series at all. But given that she has to have her birthday in the first half of summer in order to be 52, there is only about a 12.5% chance that she is any older than 51. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to announce that the final calculation for the ages of the characters are Twilight Sparkle at 51 years old, Pinkie Pie at 51, Rarity 51, Applejack 51, with Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash at 52 years old. Cue music! Nope, can't play any more than that, or Hasbro will try and copyright claim this video. This project has been a long time coming, and I am so happy to finally have it completed. If you enjoyed it, please like the video. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I've covered everything and there aren't any crucial elements that I missed.
Hey, you said the timeline goes for 9 years, right?
Yeah?
So the Cake Twins are 8 then?
I suppose. What's your point?
Look, I'm just saying we've seen what a 5-year-old pony looks like in Sweetie Belle's flashback, and she sure as heck doesn't look like those two. How do you explain that?
Okay, so I like the last part that he did, because he does acknowledge that age type discrepancy stuff going on, because Yeah, the Cake Twins are not 8 years old, obviously. Yeah, to wrap my head around it, I see where he's coming from. I do 100% see where he's coming from. That, the human world works at a third of the speed as, the pony world. I get where he's coming from. 100% understand it. But problem is there's just too many things logistically in there that give out too many kinks, such as what they said at the very end there with, the Cake Twins. If they aged like they should in the show, then that would make them 8 years old and they're still babies. And of course the Sweetie Belle flashback where she was 5-ish, then that would mean that there's something, really quirky there. So yes, it just doesn't pan out the way it should. Then there is the age discrepancy in CMC Pony Universe and the CMC in the human universe, where they seemingly are older in the human universe as opposed to younger over here in the Pony Universe. But yet whenever the main six, Twilight, comes through the portal, then it turns out that she's now seemingly younger. When it comes to the age of the main six, here's all I can think of is they obviously have a school where they go and stuff like that, because the CMC are still in school with Miss Cheerily and all that. So I can't think, that's obviously grade school type stuff. We don't see any indication other than the School of Friendship where they actually have any other schooling besides elementary. But we do also see that there is a little bit of further education when Twilight has her flashbacks where she was with Celestia, she got Spike's egg, and all that stuff. So there is some further schooling than just the CMC. And then I would presume that after, in my head, here's what I'm thinking. After, middle school type education, they might actually be done with their schooling. Because the pony world obviously works differently than it does in the human world. And like Applejack, she has responsibilities at the farm, as does Apple Bloom. So, I mean, they're that young, but they're still working on the farms. And Twilight gets sent from where she was going to school, which seemingly was an advanced schooling, so, which might have been like a college type thing. I don't know. I'm just going off the top of my head here. So I'm presuming maybe she was in, the equivalent of college for her, but then maybe her dean was like, which is Celestia in my head right now. She's like, hey, you would benefit more if you go here. So she went to Ponyville. I'm going to presume they were 15 when the show started. That's what I'm going to presume. And they had, that then, yeah, they get, I'm going to presume that 15, and they're off on their own, and they got adult responsibilities. Maybe in the pony world culture, that's when adulthood starts, 14, 15 years old, But in the human world, responsibilities, and culture's different. They're expected to be at the school and this and that. So that's a way that things could work out easily. Granted, timeline-wise, I don't know how they work with human world and pony world, but that's an easy way to explain 15. I'd say they're roughly 15, and if the time passes and it's 9 years in the pony world, that would make them 24 to 25 in the pony world by the end of the show. And if they're considered adults at 14 and 15 years old, that would definitely give Rarity the time to actually build up her clothing empire. It would give her time to do all these things. I really need to write a script on this. I think I'm onto something here. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Really doubt it, because I got a lot of other responsibilities and I'm very pressed for time. But I'm going to presume, for me, my headcanon is that they are 25 to 26 years old, because that pretty much does work. We see them go through their careers and everything. I mean, we get to see Rainbow Dash going from being a wannabe Wonderbolt to being a full-fledged, like, hey, I am one of the main stars of the Wonderbolts. This is me now. And then, of course, Fluttershy goes through, and now she ends up with a whole animal sanctuary, and let's see, Applejack. Applejack's character doesn't grow that much. She just stays with the family farm, you know, and that's okay, you know, let her do that. Pinkie Pie ends up having her whole party business. Literally, it's like, oh my gosh, this show is like Friends. We see them grow so friggin' much. Okay, I'm gonna shut up. I think they're like 25, 26 years old. That's just me. 51, sorry, Star Strike. No. I get where you're coming from, but no. It's good video, but no, they are not 51 years old. It's good and fun to theorize, but sorry, gotta say no. And with all that noise outside just then, I'm shutting up, passing it off to y'all. So if you've been here long enough, you know the drill. Hit that like tickle to subscribe. Don't be texting and driving. Watch what you love and love what you watch. And take it away, Mr. Rogers.
I like you just the way you are.